Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure for everybody to be here and for our audience also. I would like to ask first one general question so that we can start to kick off course question to Mr. Astok here. And of course, the respected guests here also are more welcome to answer. How important is data exchange and communications among government agencies in developing e-government programs? And can we know the status of the data sharing in Kuwait? Of course, this is perhaps is out of your range, Mr. Astok, about the data. What we need is how important is data exchange and communications among government agencies developing e-government programs?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the cooperation is like a critical issue.
If you pull it up, please.
Yeah, the cooperation is a critical issue actually, and how to set it up, it definitely depends on how the government is built up. But I think the main issue is that how to cultivate the culture of data sharing inside the government and how the organization should support it. What I mean by this is that, as I mentioned in the presentation also, that if we can keep the platform for the government services like access to data, data exchange portal, digital identity, accessible for each and every agency, so they can come with their services and plug and play to the portal, then it's making much more easier. If each and every agency must invent their own access to databases, invent their access to citizens' identity or
digital,
how they can do it. So more there are standardized plug and play solutions, it's making easier for the agencies to connect their services. And also legally, I think there should be a legal, standardized legal contracts allowing agencies to connect. So I think the key word is, from one hand, is standardization, both technology and legal issues, but at the same time, there should be also a clear message from the government that only these two standardized solutions are allowed and no one cannot invent their own world.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hans. And I would like to ask also Mr. Ernesto Schmitz, since you are in this SAB and you are having this experience, well, the same question goes to the same thing about how important is the data exchange.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us as well. You know, indeed, very important. I couldn't agree more with
Can you pull up
with
Hannes?
We were discussing briefly just after your keynote precisely this topic, because he touched upon in the keynote very nicely on, you know, how I particularly highlighted there was a service he introduced that was about not charging the agencies for the consumption of those queries, those data exchange queries. And it was brilliant because in many other circumstances, we could think that that is the best and the easiest way to distribute the cost of something as data exchange that usually takes effort, technical, and people behind. And then you want to distribute that cost among the participants that consume it. But in a way, by doing that, you are creating a problem because you are then forcing them to decide how much they're going to use it. And then if that is even according to cost, affordable or not affordable. So I think you answered the question saying culture is important to the exchange. I think removing of every friction as well is really important.
Removing
of every friction.
Okay.
And if you look at internal agencies as, okay, the amount of the cost being a way then to distribute, it might be challenging. So,
Okay.
or having a common platform
Okay.
for all the agencies.
I would like also the same question to, thank you very much, sir. I would like to ask Mr. Tom what he thinks of this, since he is from ZainTECH, to exchange the data and among government agencies and developing the e-government.
So, does this work? Oh, okay.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we saw just earlier from the keynote Estonia, the exchange between different governmental institutions is the key actually to make this efficient, right? So if each and every individual institution need to build up their own ecosystem or their own data, it'll be very costly. It'll take time, it'll be very costly. Also, the benefits that we saw, like saving 24 hours on a simple task, such as just inquiring something about you as an individual, is now down to, I think it was like 30 minutes or something like that, which is tremendously good. So this can, of course, be multiplied dependent on how big the population is. So I think he said it was like, I can't remember the ratio now between Estonia and Kuwait, but it was like very small in comparison to Kuwait. So if Kuwait would do the same or similar story as Estonia, all that time spent could be saved, could be spent doing something more useful. I'm not saying that people will not have a job, because normally when you talk about this efficiency parts, it's always a problem. So yeah, but what about the jobs? What should we do? And so on and so forth. However, I think it's more important to focus on what can you do with that time instead. So you have all of this time and you can do something more useful for society, so to say, yeah.
I think Mr. Hans said that he saved 4 billion euro per year, or total general. I think this is a big figure for the savings, as you mentioned, that if you can save time, as you mentioned that. And he mentioned a very interesting figure also in his very interesting speech, 23.5 hours of savings. I think this is measured in accomplishment and productivity and effort saving and time saving. I think this is 23.5 hours. Is this working hour, or this is productive hours, Mr.
It's even usually productive hours, because government offices are open during
20,
working hours.
24 hours per 7, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, and I would just want to mention, asking there, are there currently initiatives in Kuwait to build unified databases or dictionaries nationwide? If so, what are the stages achieved in this area? Are you aware of this, Mr. Hans? Not aware of this. And I think Mr. Tom, are you aware about, not yet, about how the databases are there? Anyway, how can data exchange of communications between government entities facilitate the development of e-services? You have 99 of your services online. How many, I mean, in figures, how many, Mr. Astok, how to have, I mean, all the authorities have their online services? You compulsory, or what is it?
Yeah, in Estonia we have, I think it's 99% is true figure. There might be something what is not online. If you need to apply to build a nuclear power station, it's probably not worth to put this application online.
Exactly.
But in most those services, what citizens are using are online. And the challenge what we have today probably is that not only putting the existing business process online, but rather simplifying the services also, because still we can meet some services what are online technically, but they are not re-engineered. So you need to put the same data or answering the questions you even don't have an answer.
Mm.
So to make it more like user-friendly, secondly, making them available also through the mobile application. And if we are providing services through the mobile application, this is another story. Citizens are not able to fulfill, endless texts there. And
Exactly.
so there should be something either predefined or retrieved from existing data.
Databases. Yeah.
So this means that by changing now to like a web-based, computer-based services to smartphone-based services, there should be another round of simplification go on. And if we are looking at the general population, either in Estonia or Kuwait, this means that actually most of the people using smartphones almost,
Exactly.
as we can see, every day, everywhere. And they are using less and less traditional computers. And even if you are thinking for those expats who are working in your country and maybe must apply for, whatever application to leave the country, to come to the country, they never have traditional computer. They just have smartphone.
Exactly.
So we need to think from the consumer or citizen or user perspective, what is actually how they can use it, and probably the government, as I said in my presentation, have most of the data already.
Exactly.
So but it is basically yes, no, what the citizen.
Well, as you mentioned, the government in a smartphone. I like this sentence, and this is the fact. And I would like to ask, how important is for this decision making and policy making, if we may call it, for if there is government services online, how does this help the decision makers to take proper decisions and policy making in daily life? Yes, please.
Well, I think that equally as we look at the citizen, what can we simplify for them in those services? We need to look at the government employees as well. How can we simplify for them decision making, for example, in that area of policy, or as well in the area of the operations, just providing those services to the citizen. And I think there comes to my mind is quite obvious sentence, but if you look at it, it makes a lot of sense. Like when you have data, means because you have, when you have information, you have for sure data, but it can be that you have data and not information.
Mm.
So how can we turn that data into usable information for simplifying decision making? That means from truly looking and updating in real time often those KPIs that guide the policymakers towards adjusting those policies, to even also the internal processes that government employees have for completing their own daily transactions as well. I think that in many occasions we have the chance to simplify those, even with smartphones as well.
Okay.
And well, a lot of potential, I may say, for also.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Tom also if you want to comment on this, as well as I would like to ask Mr. Tom on the e-government governance of the data, please.
Yeah, sure. I fully agree with what you just there said. One thing that comes to mind is, now it's a bit, maybe 15, 20 years ago, something like that, but I used to live in the UK, and one of the biggest initiatives at that time in the UK was, I think it was called CRISP, like the ships, right? And it was about the two governmental entities that were crucial for, you mentioned the police, for instance, were crucial for the police to know if they went into a building, did that building have anyone with a gun registered to their name? Now, when they were able to merge those two registers together, a lot of policemen's lives were saved. And another thing also that sprung to mind was that in Sweden, where I'm from, we had we spent, I think, 15, 20 years on this. So we didn't learn from Estonia, although we are more or less neighbors. We should have looked, I think, long and hard there. But we spent like 15, 20 years on building what we call, the unified register of healthcare. So if you walk into any of the healthcares in Sweden, no matter which city, no matter what, name it is, they are able to pull up your records to see, what is your history, and do you have any underlying sicknesses that they need to know, and so on and so forth. Now, when that comes to, emergency and ambulance or going out to for a call or something, that also started saving lives, of course, because they were prepared for what they would meet. So they were prepared if there was something with blood, they knew what blood type they needed to have. They were prepared if there were underlying diabetes, whatever, stuff like that. So those are something that I think that this this topic could really, really help. And I'm sure in Estonia they've reaped those benefits already. Then when it
yes, governance is very
governance. I mean, if you have, especially governance of data, is very tricky, right? We heard in the keynote, we talked about words like data owners. What is a data owner? How do you own data? It's abstract. You will hear words like custodians and so on and so forth. You saw metadata. So all of a sudden, we are talking about technical terms to a non-technical audience. Now, this is the trick that you need to, like companies where I work and in my line of business, that's the trick where we need to be able to explain to a politician, why is it important to have good quality data? Why is it important to have stop building data silos? Why is it important to look at how data is flowing throughout not only the organization or institution that they reside in, but also in between different institutions? So this is, the trick, and I mean, we've been going around and around this topic now, I think, since it started, to be honest, 15, 20 years ago, and then I don't think we have a crystal crisp, clear answer now, but what we can do is that we can look at good examples as Estonia to see, okay, what have they done? What worked for them? How did they communicate? We heard also that they own their own IT, they own their own change management. We saw these soft areas and topics also, not only hardcore technology, which is at the end what you need to make it work, but you need someone to operate it also, right? So I think that.
Do you think this is a cultural change? There is need to be for the citizens?
For sure. We talk about data-driven organizations all the time. And it's nothing else but a cultural shift in how you look at data and how you use data in your daily life, daily operations.
I think this is very important also. I would like also to ask you again, Tom, about the cybersecurity issue. Perhaps how important is this in this data exchange for everybody? Now, this is a big issue. I mean, people are getting so much, misinformation, disinformation perhaps, and they are trying to change some of the data. How important, I mean, for the state, for the citizens worldwide?
Yeah, so good question. One thing struck me when in the keynote where we saw that the citizens could go into this portal that is owned by the government, right? But what if someone would launch a portal looking almost the same?
Exactly.
But slightly different. What about this old person we talked about, 70 years old? What if they log on to this other portal that is not from the government, and so on and so on? This is happening throughout the world. I spend much of my time in Uganda, for instance, and if you log on and try to create your tourist visa for Uganda, you will find not only one, but 2, 3 similar sites. The address is different, but they come on top when you search for Uganda tourist visa, for instance. So if you're old and you're not careful, you log on to it looks exactly the same. However, when it takes you to the payment, of course, the payment section is not, it goes somewhere else, right? And you're lost.
Exactly.
So we talk about, these are the topics, we need to keep in mind, and we need to educate, and we need to be on top of these discussions, always showing that, what are the differentiator. We talk about an app. I think that is a very good way of doing that. And so I think there are certain, technologies and tools already out there that will help this, but security is always an issue, right?
Especially when we are more dependent on the mobile. Mr. Ernesto, what is your comment on this question, please, about the cybersecurity? What do you think? And SAP, I mean, if this is you are providing any special solutions for this in SAB?
Yeah, well, we do have indeed, and it's a very sensitive topic. I totally agree, and there is so much that can be controlled, because how can you avoid those sites to be there? You can figure out a few ways. I think that when it comes to cybersecurity, and if you look at how we are trusted by the citizens with their, well, the trust, right, on the data, that's what they share. So the role model is always the government, right? If we had to choose an entity, we will, by default, trust all our data with government comes first, always. Maybe, hopefully, later comes some financial entities, financial services, because we trust them with our money, and therefore they also high in the list. But government is certainly leading by example.
Lead by example, exactly.
Totally. Therefore, they know most about us.
But the private sector is also a major support, I mean, for this leading the government. The government in its own doesn't have perhaps enough experience. I mean.
Yeah, I think that in order to keep that trust, and it was also a very nice point that Hannes touched upon in his presentation, we need to empower the citizen as well to choose.
Exactly.
When and with whom they want to share the data as well. There are by default many entities, interagencies. We talk here about data exchange, sharing, right? We need them to operate, that they exchange the data. And we certainly have no saying in that data exchange, because we're talking about official documents, about official information that we truly trust them with, and they are doing that with good purpose. But then there are all the very sensitive data, health records you mentioned, right? There we might be concerned, right? Or we might want to keep things. So being able also to look at the data as a responsibility and empowering, we are empowered by the citizen to control that data and to share that data, so they can even choose when and with whom. This is also very important. And we, at the CP, yes, we do have solutions for that, but okay, that mindset is what truly counts first.
Thank you very much, and I would like to ask the same question, Mr. Astok, that can we get I'm sure you are transparent. How many, trials and people trying to penetrate your systems and losses perhaps encountered while you are in the digital transformation to the e-government, please?
Oh yeah, I think even in certain moment where someone is trying to unlock the door.
At this point of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every moment. And there are usual suspects like North Korea, Iran, Russians, who are like usually trying to do it.
Okay.
China also. So this is like a daily business. It's not anymore exception that someone is trying to go in your system, but rather it's abnormal if no one is going. So I think we need to think in two categories. One is like how we protect our systems and our data, and secondly also how we build the systems already in the way that they are like secure by default. Because if it start to build additional layers, it's already too late. So just very simple measure what we have used already for 25 years. We don't build a super database where all the data is in one database, rather than keeping it separate. Even in the worst case scenario, if one database get hit, others are saved. So at least the damage is minimized. But if you may ask that why we need this data, meaning cybersecurity on those measures, because the digital government is built on trust.
Exactly.
Citizens and businesses trusting government, and they believe that their data and transactions are made in secure manner. And 99.99% of the population will never understand how it's technically happening, and all of this, how this digital government is functioning, including myself. I'm not an engineer. I'm educated as a public relations officer. So I don't know in details, but I trust. And what we have learned that to build this trust towards digital government has taken from us 25 years, but it may go in 25 minutes if we fail.
Exactly, exactly.
And then we need another 25 years to build it up again, or maybe 12.
Less than, yeah, 5 years perhaps. It takes time to. Anyway, this is quite honestly very interesting, and I mean, in our daily life, and there are many questions that I think I like what Mr. Tom said, that those data silos. I think this, I mean, will not help if we have this, as not if not integrated fully with each other, and also to have our guards on, keeping our guards on, so that we can understand that perhaps at any minute, and of course disaster recovery, and these are always measures for somebody to be in there. I think we are going to speak about the, I mean, if you said you are not a technical guy, Mr. Astok, but what technologies infrastructure is necessary for effective keeping the data integrity and sharing in a place in the government agencies to ensure this cooperation between the data and different ecosystems and that. So what do you think? Is there any infrastructure needed for this technology?
Yeah, as I said, I'm not a technical expert, but if I'm thinking from a governance perspective, it's always important to understand the data integrity is actually the key issue.
Exactly.
As we are speaking about confidentiality, availability, and integrity.
Privacy also.
Yeah, privacy, but the integrity is a key issue.
It is.
Because if bad guys are stealing my data, okay, they see, okay, first of all, they can see how much money I have in my bank account or what kind of property I own. Okay, it might be like somehow affected to my reputation, but it's not like killing me actually.
Exactly.
Even if they steal my money, it's just money, you know. But
it's still affecting your life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but I can survive it. But if they now intervening to the healthcare system,
exactly,
and let's say changing my blood group, so
yes,
I'm
exactly.
I'm zero rhesus positive, and they're changing to AB rhesus negative.
This is a big threat.
And when I'm getting to by accident to the hospital, and they're checking from the database, and they're trusting it, and they're injecting me wrong blood.
Exactly.
When I'm gone.
Yes.
And this is really affecting my life.
Exactly.
So I think that in this sense, whatever technologies we are using, we need always to think how we can verify the integrity of the data. So we really believe that the data is in good shape and no one cannot change it. Exactly. I think the changing is like a crucial issue because it's changing my life in a way or another. Now, I know Google is here with Google Cloud, and many governments are thinking about cloud issues. Yes. And I think it's very right track, because this is one of the technologies what could both reduce the costs, raise the quality, how we keep the data, and also provide better disaster recovery. So now it's just the question how we are doing, how we are utilizing the technology. And it's the same with whatever measures we are using. So can we trust the technology? Who is providing it for us? Is there only good intentions from the company, or is there government behind it who wants to, sniff around us? So this is what we all need to consider. It was like 15 years back, it was not the question.
Exactly.
But now we need to think also from Joe's perspective also. So not only technology, but who provides it, who owns it, and can we trust the vendor also?
Okay. Mr. Ernesto, if you have any comment on this, please. Also, data integrity.
No, well, that's a scary example. But I think, the integrity of the data, I think blockchain came as a technology in that area to support a lot, right?
Yes.
Ensuring this immutability of that data fields. And supporting also the understanding that who did that change and why. And I think that all what we can do there is well, we have to rely a lot on technology. But the other aspect as well, which is not changing the data, but who look at my data and with what purpose, is also equally important, because it can be concerning, right? As a citizen, you know that a lot of your data is there, but you don't know who is looking at that data and why. And this giving clarity to the citizen as well on this data was checked or is going to be accessed by this entity related to this transaction, that transparency is equally powerful and something to look at.
Don't you think sometimes we, in the social media, when we use them, they say this data is encrypted from peer to peer? Is this sound right? And don't you think this is sometimes fragile? I mean, when you say the encryption, that somebody could get the decryption of the data halfway. I mean, the transportation and the communications. Don't you think this is an issue? Who can trust that this data is peer-to-peer secured?
Yeah.
You said because somebody might enter and sniff this one.
Yeah, this in the communication. When we see, and all of us have lately a lot in our applications, either it's Facebook, right? Our consumer grade application, and we see now that message is encrypted end to end. Well, what does it mean?
What does it mean? I would like to ask Tom after you.
We're gonna give that to him then.
Well, I think this is a good question for Mr. Tom. Please, if you want to answer this. Yes. Well, you are in the communication field, so you need to in ZainTECH anyway.
Sure. Now, actually, I mean, there's always a risk when you're communicating with two people. Someone can overhear when I'm talking to you around the corner and then make their own, conclusions on that and then spread it further. However, nowadays, peer-to-peer or point-to-point, or whatever you want to call it, the APIs or the technical terms, can be considered very safe and if set up properly with all the monitoring and all the alerts, normally not the biggest issue. However, what you do with the data, that's a different story. And I very much like that we should, but it's good if we could think about it. Is it life-threatening? If my money goes away, will I die? No. If my reputation is that, will I? No, and so on and so forth. However, that doesn't mean that we should do whatever we want to with the data. So if you combine the information about a specific individual, it's not the health records or the financial statements or the prop on its own that are actually, saying anything about you as an individual. It's more when you combine them all together, you can gain valuable insight. And for instance, especially healthcare, also maybe financial statements, depending on where you have spent the money, can be used, depending on your situation or standings in the society, for blackmailing, for instance. So these are the topics we need to take care of. And here we can learn a lot from governmental banks, for instance. They have something called segregation of duties. We could use the modern technology, AI, bots, so to say, because a bot, they will not know and they will not care about the combination of data. And when a individual, if I'm sitting there and operating the system, when I look at the records for an individual, I might not see everything. It might be masked or anonymized, so I don't see the actual financial statements or the healthcare, but I can use it then maybe for predictions and stuff like that for data scientists. I think that is the key here.
Yes, Mr. Astok. Yes, please. And then there is another question for you, please.
Yeah, to continue what you both said, it is the question is that what we are sharing about ourselves, and it's like a fear about digital government, that there will be a big brother who is watching you, and definitely government has a lot of data about you. But I think the biggest risk is not the data what is owned by government. This is pretty traditional data. In social media, people are sharing about themselves like much more than any government knows. So basically, the risk is not big brother, but rather, so to say, small sister who chats about you with your friends.
Social engineering.
And then you are doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So as Tom said, that based on what you are sharing by yourself and what is visible about you, you can engineer and put together a really good profile
Exactly.
who you actually are. And also, what we need to consider that the risk is not only the government data, but also a lot of private data. Let's say most of the shops where you have a loyalty card, they have like a endless shopping list, what you have been shopping for last, I don't know, 10 years. And this shopping list probably profiles you much better than any piece of
Exactly.
data what you have in government.
Exactly. And this is lead us to, I mean, the telecommunication is very important, isn't it? And to prove that sometimes when there is a troubled regions, they might utilize and misutilize it, as a matter of fact. And this could be a major mistake or a major threat to the citizens and people if somebody, an insider, these telecommunications, and then they can broadcast those messages illegally. But still, at the end of the day, how govern, I mean, this policy making and this awareness from the inside perspective, Mr. Tom, so that we always trust, and there is always a directory for everybody to trust whatever comes out of this telecommunication is true, and it is legal, and it is reliable. Please.
I think I started with this topic was a long time ago, 15, 20 years ago, back in Sweden. What we did there for one of the telco operators was that we kept the true and qualified data on the site, right? The true and qualified data about all individuals, where they resided, how they moved, when they turned on the phone, off their phone, their text messages, so on and so forth. So we did that because of the police that they should call. Nowadays, the phone that you're using, if you want to use it for that type of purposes, you're using a burner phone. We don't know about it because it's on and off, and you're using digital media. We cannot access that. So that is the importance of that has diminished, so to say. So leftists are those people like regular people just using the phone for the daily business. But if I go to myself and see how I am using my mobile phone, I don't know, maybe write 10 text messages a year. The rest are on some digital platform. I'm not using it at all. I go on and off the grid every now and then, depending on how I travel, and so on and so forth. I use my computer as my phone sometimes. So again, I very like what Hannes just said there, that it's not about what we are doing and the information we are storing. It's about the information we are sharing, because on Instagram, on Facebook, everything, everyone knows everything about everyone.
Exactly.
And, you are tagged, even if you don't want to be there, you are tagged with someone, and someone can look in and go, aha, you were there yesterday. How do you know? Yeah, well, they tagged you. And sometimes you're even tagged when you're not there, or sometimes Facebook tells you you're in, in the States, but you're actually in Portugal, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the key part here. But going back to the question, we do have, very rigorous security measures. We are working with all the large vendors. We're doing penetration tests on a regular basis. We have external companies coming to our premises, trying to attack us with all there is there to go, so that we can safeguard that it's safe and secure. Especially also because a lot of the times now you have what you call mobile money, right? So you have like your financials also via your teleoperator. So we need to be extremely secure that we are not penetrated easily. As soon as that happens, we should have a lockdown, and the crisis plan should kick off.
Thank you very much. And also the same thing will go to Mr. Ernesto. Since you are a big company in this software development, I mean, these legacy systems, if this is being, misused or threatened by any way, apart from the communications, Mr. Tom answered, will these be disguised, be sometimes breached for anything. How dangerous is this on the systems, on the country, on the citizens, just for you being, because everybody now, their data, our data, is on databases now. So is there any measures for this to be awareness, to be protecting those databases?
I mean, we care a lot.
You care a lot. Yeah, this is a good...
If I had to summarize, I usually say this, how do you protect, how do you provide the security? I would say carefully.
Yeah.
The reality is we had to completely rethink the way our software was consumed by our customers and users. And among them, of course, government agencies, because we have, as customers, agencies from more than 180 countries across the world. So I think the figure is over 17,000 customers in the public sector. So those are very demanding. So when it comes to protecting their data, their services, we truly have extremely high standards, get auditing and all the measures you can imagine, not only in the data centers where our software runs, but also in the companies as well, or in the operators where those people are sitting. Okay, so this end-to-end encryption applies here really, really well. Equally as a government, we have the trust of our customers. If we do it wrong, to recover the trust, it can take long. So that's why for us it's a big deal. We care a lot, and we put a lot of measures in how our software is consumed and ensuring that it's done in the proper way.
I'm saying this, you know why? Because, you know, CrowdStrike problem, this affected the CrowdStrike, this software company, the American one, which had so much, I mean, malfunctions in some 30 countries, and the airports were stopped, and yet it was a security company, and this is affecting all their vendors worldwide. And it was a very big disaster, even on the airports, trains, hospitals, as you mentioned. So that was sometimes a big mistake. I mean, some mistake, if happens, that might affect even the whole system, legacy system in the country, and the country itself, and perhaps people's lives.
I think it's a good example of looking at how a legacy software can affect today's even global network of all services and even institutions. I think that's why in the cloud you need to rethink how you do things. That high availability concept take a new dimension there. The security as well. I don't have any unique recipe that will fit every single situation.
Yeah.
But it's essential that to also look at your legacy install base, your basement, as a threat. It's like a house. You don't want to go there because it's messy. It's every time you go down that ladder, you don't find the things you want. It doesn't smell good. It's a typical basement we all have at our houses with high humidity. Nobody wants to go there. But the reality is that if you don't deal with that, sooner or later it's going to pose a problem to the rest of the foundation of the house. So therefore, addressing legacy also from a security angle is essential.
Okay. I think this is also goes to Mr. Hans about this. I think you are very well secured, and we are happy that, quite honestly, how did you reach this ranking, Mr. Hans, on the number 1, number 2? I saw your presentation. The worst one was number 3. Was what, in the security, or you were in the number 3 in security worldwide index, global index, and in the e-government, I think you know. So, I mean, let us get to this really. How you managed to do this? Is it technology? Is it organization? Is it cultural? Is it vision? Please let us know.
Yeah, thank you. I think it relates to those analog elements, what I underlined in my presentation, because technology we are using is mostly international and available for everyone. Okay, the X-Road solution is Estonian made, but also available internationally. But most of the solutions we are using are from international market. So technology is accessible for most of the countries. If you just have money to buy it, or the donors are supporting
So
development.
this is not advantage. I mean,
Yeah.
not a big advantage for the technology.
Sometimes if you have less money, it's advantage because you need to think more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the key issue for success is, I think, all those analog elements. You have a right organization, or you need to adjust it accordingly. Like 15 years back, cybersecurity was like some minor issue. Now it's most of the governments having like national cybersecurity agencies and so on.
Exactly.
So you need to have proper organization, political will, but also willingness for the change management. And it's a cultural issue, as you said. It's not starting from the day one that everyone is eager to change. Estonian government officials are as lazy and very uneager to change as government officials in any government.
Then
But if you find their motivation,
what was it?
I think it's mostly the motivation for the government officials is to avoid risks, to do their work better. So meaning that if they don't need to collect the same data what someone else is collecting, so it's a big relief. So it's not my risk anymore.
Exactly.
So it's someone else's risk. So and also if they are thinking that can we do something to save my job? Okay, someone else might be fired, but if I'm motivated to do something differently, to innovate something, so my job is saved then.
Exactly.
So, but it's I think it's not happening in day one. So it should be pushed also from the top, from the political leadership who is willing for the innovation, who is accepting also failures and risks in this innovation path, because something is going wrong also. So if it's coming top down also, and you're motivated and allowed to take at least several risks, and if you're motivated to change the processes, then it's okay. If you're not motivated, if you're punished, if something is going wrong, so everyone is happy to do nothing.
Exactly. They're afraid. They're afraid to do so. Anyway, Mr. Ernesto, you are going to speak about AI. And I would like to know, I mean, since we are in the era of AI, artificial intelligence, and the effect and the role of reaching to, well, helping perhaps, how important is AI in developing or reaching to the standards like we have in Estonia for the e-government?
Well, very important. My personal view, my professional as well, and hopefully the one that I will convey later in my keynote, because of the benefits that it brings. You know, one very unique aspect, we are looking at simplification, right? And simplifying. It's like we want to make the life of the citizen simpler, the lives of the agents as well, okay, the government agents. And AI delivers that. It's truly the best vehicle to deliver that simplification, because that growth on data brought complexity, and we, as our brains cannot truly process all that amount of data easily. We need now something that help us go back into clarity, help us simplify things and just guide us into the few things that matter. And AI has the power to truly deliver that.
Tool is the standard, I mean, for the services, for the cooperation, for the awareness. I mean, these AI tools to be implemented, do you think this is really going to make a change effectively on the government services to raise the level? As we mentioned, that the ranking of the country will be increased and be better positioned worldwide.
Yeah,
with the AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can AI deliver higher efficiency? The answer is yes. Can AI deliver a better experience as well? Even a conversational ones, that's the main one that comes to our mind. Absolutely, it can. Can AI help me make better decisions? Yes. So if AI can truly deliver in all these key aspects, I think AI can transform public services as we know them.
Tom, will you believe the same? Don't you think we are exposing ourselves to more threats, relying more on AI and technology?
Well, that's okay. That's a good question. Threats, yeah, there will be more threats for sure. However, yeah, AI, I fully agree with Ernesto. AI is here, and looking at, for instance, let's take the Nordic region. I think we were quite early to adopt chatbots in banking, governmental, some of the governmental entities. And looking at the chatbot now in Sweden, if I compare it to where I live now in Dubai chatbots are not, it's good, but not really that good. I would say that my banks in Sweden, I can more or less just do with one bank chatbot's called Nova. She'll do everything I need, very quick and efficient. And she also asked me, but last time you were here, you also wanted to know this and this and that. Don't you? How did that topic go? Did you close it? Were it successful? So it goes back to the chat history, bringing it up to my next time I'm there. And if I say yes, it went good, or no, it'll continue, and then I can maybe add something there. So I think AI is very good. Also, when it comes to one of my favorite topics is healthcare, for instance.
Yes.
Preventive healthcare. It's crucial because what happens is we know that every day we become 1 day older, right? And with 1 day older, something happens in our body, and then if we use AI and then harvest all the good data about the last checkup, compare that to other forms of data out there on the market, we could maybe prevent certain diseases to even materialize before they come, so to say. So I think these are two topics immediately that we can all benefit from. But I don't think we've seen the true power of AI yet. I think we are only starting to experience that, but it's there, and we definitely benefit.
We have to think about it in the future. Yes, Mr. Astok.
Yeah, I also true believer that AI will do a lot of good things in already close future. But I think there is a trap what we need to avoid, that AI may make us very lazy, because whatever where we are using AI, we must still be very much critical. What are the suggestions, what we are getting? And as usually those suggestions are very nice. And you think they are correct, they might be not. And it's easy to become lazy and say that, oh, this suggestion is good, and lose your critical thinking.
Exactly.
And comparing what you know, is it something similar what this AI is telling you or suggesting you? So I think we still need to use our brain capacities also in next decades. Either the AI can suggest us a lot, but we need to think, is it true? Or because it may start to discriminate, it start to may think how he likes to think, or most of the people are thinking what is not necessarily true or good. So we need to be critical.
Well, this is the issue of ethical or the biased data and the AI, because who put the data, who feed the data, where do they collect the data? Is this data authenticated? Is it verified before we use it? As you mentioned, well, there has to be cross-checking on this by the people or the individuals, so that they can make sure that this data is shown to them. I think in general now it is becoming smarter because of this deep learning and self-learning, cumulative learning of these AI systems and algorithms. I think it is doing a lot of solutions for us. But as you mentioned, to prevent us from being a bit lazy, but I think it is being guided by humans. So I think one day, I don't know, is this the film where those robots can conquer and then control our lives, and then they think better than we do? Well, this is a futuristic thing. I mean, it might happen, it might not, but I think at some stage, because they need power. I mean, once they are needing power, then they are weak. If they can sustain of course, the energy somehow from the sun, perhaps then there is a threat. Otherwise, I don't know, this is, but from the ethical point of view, we have to, as you mentioned, we have to verify the data, we have to cross-check the data, and not take it for granted that this data is really worthwhile unless we, and this is, I think, the least we could do at this point. And I think we are reaching the end. وصلنا تقريبا للنهاية. اللي عنده يحب يسأل يحب يستفسر قبل لا نختم وناخذ بعدين بريك الصلاة. Yes, please. تفضل تفضل. في مايك بعد إذنك. عندنا 5 دقائق تقريبا. We have 5 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for this excellent lecture and excellent expertise in governmental e-government. I think the big target of our conference is to achieve the governmental sector to the best practice in e-government, right? This is our big target. My question here is, what is about the best strategy and the procedures which related to this strategy and KPIs which can enhancing the governmental sector performance in sharing data and communication? Thank you.
Shukran. Thanks a lot. You would like to answer on those KPIs and the strategies and this, please?
Yeah, I think the best strategy is that there is like a motivation from bottom up and political will from top down. So if those two meet, then it's providing pretty good results already. But if you are thinking about KPIs, definitely you can calculate how much services are online and available, fully online as a full transaction, not only like application form. Secondly, if you do kind of inventory of your databases and do kind of cleanup, who is collecting with what kind of data. So this could be like a KPI also, that how we can become, as there are databases, a single source of truth. And also like you can put a KPI how many databases are connected to the data exchange and using it. So building like an ideal picture and mirroring it with reality. And the ideal picture is like a KPI. So maybe somehow this is one of the ways what we have used in several countries to measure the success.
And I think also, Mr. Astok, that the citizen satisfaction could be one of the KPIs, so that people can...
Yeah, sure, because people are used to online banking, people are used to buy flight tickets online, they are used to Amazon shopping, so the customer experience from the government services must be at the same level what they are used in Amazon or any other online commercial services.
Yeah, I think this is very important. I think وصلنا تقريبا إلى الختام. I would like to thank my guest. ساعات خلاص طال احنا خلاص ما I would like to thank my guests here in the panel discussion. Thank you for being with us, and we will have now a break and hope we see you also today and tomorrow in the conference. Thank you very much. يعطيكم العافية جميعا.